That's me. I'm stuck on everything you're going to see today, so what can I tell you? If you ever have some questions later on, please feel free to contact me. I am Carla Small. I am your HMH rep. And today we have Jennifer, who's going to be working with you with Into Reading, which is our K-5 English, and Arriba la Lectura, which is our Spanish program. They're both parallel, so everything that you see in English happens in Spanish also. Okay, so you'll have every resource that you have in English and Spanish. On your desk, you have some notice and note pads, so you can take notes. And then you also have some notice and note posters and paddles. So if you guys have an aha moment today when you see something, you can raise your paddle.
Very good.
Jennifer?
Thanks, Carla. Well, good morning. How you guys doing today?
Good.
On a very warm Saturday morning, right? Yeah, so as Carla had mentioned, my name is Jen Whitmarsh. I'm a National ELA Content Specialist. I live a whopping 1 hour from here. I live outside of Austin, and so it's a pleasure to spend my morning with all of you here today. So during your evaluation process, you might be wondering, well, what in the world makes HMH different? What makes Into Reading and Arriba la Lectura different? And first and foremost, we do want to share that they both revolve around a balanced literacy approach to instruction. And truly it's made manageable. You'll have your reading workshop as well as your writing workshop. You'll have access to brand new resources built completely from the ground up for us here in Texas. 100% coverage of your TEKS as well as your ALPS, and 100% coverage of handwriting and spelling. It's completely woven in, integrated within our foundational skills. In addition to that, 100% print, 100% digital. So no matter where you are on the continuum, you and your students will have full access to the materials. And yes, Parallel Plus when it comes to Spanish. Speaking of Spanish instruction, and by the way, we can share that here. And go.
Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry, I'm late to the game.
That's okay. Very good. And they are recording this for you. She's in the bathroom. Hey. And so just so that you know, that means we should all behave, right? No, what that just really means is that you'll have access to a recording. And I even said that I would share with the district. I even have a recording of the presentation. So if you wonder, well, what did Jen say? You'll have access to that content.
And if you got colleagues that you want to check it out, recommend that Kristen Lewick will get with everyone and tell you how to access the video recording.
Yes.
So speaking of Spanish, truly it was built by the thought leaders when it comes to bilingual and dual language education. As you see here with Isabel Campoy, Alma Florada, as well as Dr. Elena Izquierdo. They have approved every part, piece, page, translation, as well as trans-adaptation found within Arriba la Lectura to ensure authenticity and the highest of quality. Now we know this coming year we'll be implementing new TEKS, new organization, new strands, new resources. And so what we want to do is really partner with you as the learning company to ensure your success and your students' success. And that really can come through professional development and a variety of forms of professional development, either face-to-face, web-based, on-demand, and of course through videos so that you can see those best practices in action. So you'll have all of that professional development, again, to get your classroom started off on a good foot. Now, during the next few moments, what I'd really love to do is kind of walk you through an Into Reading as well as an Arriba la Lectura classroom and kind of how it's organized and what you would have access to as a classroom teacher. Now, within an Into Reading as well as Arriba la Lectura, first and foremost, you'll notice that it's modular. When you see modular or you hear modular, think flexible. So here you'll have access to, in kindergarten, 9 modules. There are 4 weeks worth of instruction in each module for a total of 36 weeks. In grades 1 and above, you'll see that there are 12 modules. There are 3 weeks worth of instruction in each module for a total of 36 weeks. Comprehensive coverage. Yet again, flexible coverage. Now every single lesson within every single module revolves around that literacy framework that you see here. Whole group instruction, followed by small group, and then let's bring everybody back together for a whole group wrap up. And this is not only for the reading workshop, but also for the writing workshop. Now within whole group instruction, you're going to find that you'll have access to several different teaching opportunities, from shared reading to interactive read-alouds to, of course, your reading mini lesson. And within Into Reading, as well as Arriba la Lectura, you'll have access to what we call stars of the show. In essence, what that simply means to you is that you'll have access to 4 unique resources so that you can easily implement that whole group experience within the classroom. So you'll have authentic literature, 2 unique pieces, your My Book and your Teaching Pal. Notice and note strategies, which Carla had mentioned to you a moment ago. The dynamic duo, which is your anchor charts, and display and engage. So let's kind of explore each one of those. Within Into Reading, as well as Arriba la Lectura, you're going to find authentic literature. And of course, it all begins with our youngest learners, and specifically in kindergarten, where we're really building that love of literacy and reading. In the kindergarten classroom, you'll have access to 33 big books, 36 trade books or read aloud books. In first grade, you'll have access to 10 big books, 20 read aloud books or trade books. In second grade, you'll have 30 read aloud books. And grades 3 and above, you too have read aloud opportunities completely integrated within your instruction. So these are real big books. They're not all bound together. It's that authentic experience when we're engaging our students in shared reading. Now, what we've done is we've collected all those pieces of text and put them in what we call a text set. This text set is multi-genre, tied to a theme or to a topic, science and social studies. And I know here in your district that's very important because your units revolve around science and social studies and you want that quick opportunity to make that cross-curricular connection. And they're all tied together with what we call an essential question. In this case, it's I can do it. So again, multi-genre, culturally relevant and diverse, tied to science, social studies, and all woven together with an essential question. This holds true for Arriba la Lectura as well. So students are engaged in that bilingual or dual language experience. They too will have that rich literature. Within Arriba la Lectura, there are a few unique resources. One in particular is the Reading Adventure magazine. Now, kindergarten, it's in a big book format. Now here, what we utilize, or what we would find, should I say, within the Reading Adventure magazine is 100% authentic Hispanic literature or text, so that our students can truly connect not only to the culture, but the academic language, background, and so that they too can see themselves within the literature. Now, so that a teacher can easily implement the Reading Adventure magazine within their teacher's guide, they will have access to extension lessons that were developed by our authorship team, which again really ensures the highest of quality. In addition to all that rich, authentic literature, you'll have what we call My Book and Teaching Pal. Don't forget, again, kind of that experience where it all begins in kindergarten as we move forward with all that big book literature as well as read aloud literature. And speaking of the kindergarten classroom, we really engage our students many times through that shared literacy experience. And this is one of my favorites. It's a classic. This is called Jabari Jumps, where a child is trying to do something for the very first time. He's very excited about climbing up the ladder to jump off a diving board. Now, as a teacher, so that we can easily engage our students either in Jabari Jumps or, as you see here in this selection, all by myself, on the back, you'll have what we call book sticks. And these book sticks engage your students in the close reading process. They're engaged in accountable talk and interactive reading. And then, yes, even in kindergarten, they're citing textual evidence. And they'll be able to cite their textual evidence either from the big book or the read aloud book and what we call a My Book. Now, your kindergarten My Book is unique in comparison to the other grades, simply by design. In kindergarten, this is a response to reading. The authentic literature in kindergarten is housed in big book or in a read aloud form. Yes, it is consumable, and yes, it is replaced each year. It's a part of the package. And don't forget, it's also completely online if you choose to use it in that form. Now, as we make the transition from kindergarten and we then move into grades 1 and above, this is where, again, we'll introduce those two unique resources, My Book and Teaching Pal. Your authentic literature, beginning in grade 1, all of that literature is found within your student My Book. Your My Book is a collection of all those award-winning trade titles. So just imagine in the past, we would have had to do something like this, right? Come and really curate or collect our own collection of trade books. But what you'll have access to is a Write in My Book, where students are interacting with the text. This is a 4th grade example where they're reading that trade title, Thunder Rose. They're interacting, they're citing textual evidence, they're responding to the text. either in print or completely online. Now, so that a teacher or all of you can engage your students with this rich, authentic literature, you'll have access to what we call a teaching pal. Now, in the past, what we've done is we've taken our books and we've chocked them full of Post-it notes. Well, no longer, because within your teaching pal, which looks just like this is a companion to your Student My Book. Because if I open this up, I'm going to find color-coded Post-it notes that walks me through the selection. So earlier on, I showed you Thunder Rose. Here it is from a teacher's perspective within your teaching pal. And you'll notice the Post-it notes that are on the left as well as the right-hand side pages. And this allows me to engage my students in meaningful conversation, collaboration, and really interact with the text. So let me give you an example. This is from first grade. This is, again, a classic. Teachers love this authentic piece of literature. It's called Interrupting Chicken. The blue Post-it notes engaged our students in that first read. Who are the characters? Who's the author? What's the genre? What are the concept words? You have the built-in questioning, follow-up questioning, and even annotation tips, because again, your student book is a write-in text. It's also directly tied to our TEKS as well as our ELPs and our DOK levels. Now, as you move through that close reading process, you'll then come to the purple Post-it notes, that targeted close read, where we're coming back to a specific element of the text. In this case, characters, again, tied to your TEKS, to your ELPs, and the DOK levels. Now, as you move through any one of the selections, you'll come in contact with a very special type of note, and that is through the work of Kylene Beers and Bob Prost, and that is Notice a Note. And here you can see within Interrupting Chicken, we're focusing in on the signpost of Words of the Wiser. What's the life lesson? What's Papa trying to teach the little chicken? And we all know, right, that's to not interrupt. And so again, built-in questioning, annotation tips, your TEKS, your ELPs, and the DOK levels, truly to get students to stop, to notice specific elements of the text, and then to note. Now, all of those signposts are in anchor chart format. You can project them, download them, print them. And yes, of course, you can use this as a model so that you can create them with your students if you choose to do so. And at the end of each selection, there will be a response opportunity. So we're responding to what we're reading. And this is in direct alignment with our new TEKS, where we're getting students to engage with the text. We're using academic language and vocabulary, communication, collaboration. And yes, we're writing about what we're reading. We're being reflective readers. And this too is a part of that dynamic experience within whole group. And the fourth and final star, that duo, you'll have access to your anchor charts. And these anchor charts are directly tied to each and every one of the lessons. There's 7 different types of anchor charts. They're all online. You can project them, download them, print them, and of course, again, use them as a model if you'd like, and you can create them with your students if you choose. And what we call display and engage. Here, again, you have 7 different types of display and engage. Now, I know as a classroom teacher, many times I would come in early or stay late in the day to create resources like this so that I could get my students engaged in the lesson. Just quick opportunities to keep them with me, to keep them motivated throughout a mini lesson. And then, of course, as we wrap up that whole group experience, just in reflection, what are those stars of the show? In essence, the 4 pieces you'd use within each whole group opportunity. Rich, authentic literature, carefully curated, multi-genre, in a text set, tied to science and social studies, and of course, woven together with an essential question. Please know that all of those selections, all big books, read aloud books, trade books, my book literature is all online with full audio support. So you can have that voice in the classroom, full annotation, note-taking, and bookmarking. And then, of course, you have access to Notice and Note, the work of Kylene Beers and Bob Prost, and then the dynamic duo. All those anchor charts and display and engage charts that many times as teachers we spend a lot of time creating, and those have been done for you. So if we bring our attention quickly back to the model, we just concluded that whole group experience, that mini lesson opportunity. It's now time for us to move to small group. Now, when we think about small group instruction, a lot can happen during that period of time. It could be teacher-led, it could be collaborative learning, it could be literacy centers, stations or rotations. It could be independent work. But many times as teachers, one thing that we perhaps struggle with is how do we determine those groups? And what you'll have access to is dynamic data and reporting. It's actionable data. It's one thing to be able to have access to this kind of data, but it's a whole nother to take this data with a simple click of a button, your touchpad or your mouse, and it will automatically create the groups for you. Now, as a classroom teacher, you still have full control. Obviously, you can add new groups, you can remove groups, or you can choose to not use this. But just know that it is built in and it allows you to have flexible grouping within your classroom that's data-driven.
So what generates the data?
So our assessments, and I'll share those with you here in just a moment. We have a wide variety of assessment points that you'll have access to. Once we've created those groups, you can then determine, well, do we need to move into intervention or some type of differentiation? And within Interreading, as well as Arriba la Lectura, you'll have several tools to do that. First and foremost, you'll have access to a collection of Rigby readers. Now, are you all familiar with Rigby readers by chance? Yes? Yes? Yes.
My favorite.
Yes, so you will have access to new Rigby reader titles, kinder through 5th grade, English as well as in Spanish. What is so very important to note about our Rigby readers is that you'll have access to 90 titles per teacher, 6 copies of each title. Online, you'll have access to all grade levels, kinder through 5th grade.
Could you repeat those?
I sure can, yes, 90 titles, 6 copies of each. Online, that's in print. Online, you'll have access to all grade levels, kinder through 5th grade. So if I'm a 3rd grade teacher and I need to dip down to 1st, I can do it easily, right? I have full access to all grade levels. For those of you, yes?
And one other thing, because our platform is K-12, you will also have access to, let's say you're a 5th grade teacher, 6th grade material, including the novels that are online.
Yep, that's a good point, Carla, that you can even bump up if you need to.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
You want me to wait with my questions or?
It's up to you.
Okay.
I know you all are on a very
Yeah.
serious
I'll
time
wait.
frame. So I just want to make sure. We do have a 15-minute transition, so it's up to you. I'm not sure where you all are going. If you want me to roll into that a little bit, you want to wait? Okay. Grades 3, 4, and 5, you do have write-on, wipe-off cards. This too is very unique. Here's an example of one. I feel like a flight attendant every time I do this. I open this up, right? It's like the safety card. So here you have a write-on, wipe-off card that you would have access to. These are completely digital as well. But what's so very powerful about all of our Rigbys is that they're all supported with ready-made lesson plans. And these ready-made lesson plans really allow you to utilize the text. So maybe I'm wanting to use animals of the rainforest more than one way, or I have more than one group focusing in on this particular text, but for different purposes. Because on my ready-made lesson plans, I have instructional options. So maybe I have a group that focuses, or one I need to focus in on key ideas in detail. And perhaps another one, it's theme and graphic features. So I can use this more than one way, and I even have opportunities for extension. Every single one of our Rigby readers is supported with a running record as well. So for guided reading instruction, for you to flexibly move your groups. You ask about data. One way in which you can capture data is through our guided reading benchmark assessment. Consider these cold reads or fresh reads. And here you can truly identify that instructional level for each and every one of your students when utilizing guided reading specifically within the classroom. So that's one data point. In addition to your Rigby readers is one way to support your students through intervention or differentiation. You'll have what we call tabletop mini lessons. Now I know many of you came in today and you saw them on the tables. We moved most of them out of the way for you. But feel free to browse when you get a chance. We have a few of them throughout the room. So what you see up on the screen is an example of your English language development tabletop mini lesson. If you're to flip that open, what you'd find is academic language and vocabulary and pictorial support. The idea here is to really provide students access to that rich language so that they can unpack increasingly complex text. Now on the back side, you'll see support for the various domains, so reading, writing, listening, and speaking, but more importantly, scaffolded questioning according to our proficiency levels here in Texas, from beginning to intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. Quite frankly, this tabletop mini lesson can be used with any student, any child within the classroom, no matter if they've been identified as EL or not, right? So really consider that when thinking about how you might use this particular piece within the room. In addition, you'll have access to what I have here in my hands, and again, we have a few other examples for you to take a peek at. This is a tabletop mini lesson specifically geared towards reading skills. Now, if I choose to, I can use this within my whole group experience. If you think back a moment ago, I talked about that targeted close read with an interrupting chicken, and that was on characters. Here you see it again in a tabletop mini lesson. But what's so powerful about this, if I flip it over on the back, I have my instructional support that's scaffolded, and I can use it with any text at any time. It's agnostic, so it doesn't say must use with interrupting chicken. So no matter the level of the text, I can still support all of my students. And then of course online, if you know that you need to even dip down even further, specifically with foundational skills and word study, you'll have a studio with over 250 additional lessons. These are really targeted and focused lessons and really geared towards students that are needing more of that strategic or intensive support within the classroom. Now we know many times we need to even move beyond that. And you will have access to, specifically in kinder through second grade, online adaptive learning software that focuses on foundational literacy skills. The idea here is to really get our students proficient by grade 3. So I'm going to share just a quick example of what this would look like before we move on.
You have read many words with a short A sound. Apple. Let's learn about the long A sound.
A. Table.
The long A sound is the same as the letter's name in the alphabet. Look and listen.
Integrated articulation videos. Now it's your
Now you
turn.
say it.
A.
I didn't hear you. Oh, that's okay. And it all takes place, thank you, there you go, after the fact. No worries, I appreciate the participation. That's all good, it's early. And then it all takes place in what we call BC Hall. It's a very fun and engaging location. I know, it's an excellent place. Now, when you think about partnering with HMH and utilizing these resources, just know that you will have full support no matter the tier of instruction that you need to provide within the classroom, be it tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. You have comprehensive support for our intervention and differentiated resources. Now, we know many times when this takes place in the classroom, we wonder, well, what are all the other kids doing? And you'll have access to connected literacy centers, stations, and or rotations. It truly depends on what you would like to call them. They're directly aligned to your TEKS as well as your ELPs. And one part of this experience is making sure our students have access to trade library for independent reading, self-sustained reading of increasingly complex text. That's exactly what's called out within our TEKS. And a part of that will be our student choice library. You'll have access to 12 unique titles. They're award winners, as you see here with the kissing hand or the name jar, response opportunities, and even book club plans to go with each and every one of them. So you can use them in that book club experience if you choose to do so. I do want to wrap up my time kind of the small group because we talked a lot about teacher-led, right? The Rigby readers for guided reading instruction. Your tabletop mini lessons, again, that targeted skill-based or strategy-based group that you can pull. Adaptive online learning software called iRead, really to push students towards proficiency with foundational literacy skills by grade 3. And of course, those award-winning trade books so that students can use them either for independent reading. And by the way, there's 6 copies of each of those titles. I believe I forgot to mention that to you. And of course, they all come with book club plans. So we then bring everybody back together. Now we know, no matter if it's in whole group or small group, that we need to address foundational skills, right? I've talked a bit about that. And within Into Reading, as well as Arriba la Lectura, you'll have a very systematic and explicit approach to foundational skill development. It is connected. And that is one thing too that I've learned that's very important to you all here within your school district. So as you see here with this long O lesson, this is a phonics lesson. It's scaffolded by design. I do, we do, you do. You have continuous blending. It's grounded in research through the work of Shane Templeton as well as Ann Cunningham. And you may recognize Shane's name. He's the author of Words Their Way. So it incorporates that multisensory approach, word building, word sorting, and meaningful practice and application. And one way we can do that is through our Start Right readers. Now, these would be considered decodable text, and they're not the decodables that we've experienced in the past, right? Mat, cat, sat, cat. It's pretty much about as far as it went. They actually carry a storyline. They're connected, so characters carry over. And even as teachers, we can engage our students in comprehension of the text because we're really focusing in on decoding. We pre-teach high-frequency words, so it really engages students in building fluency and confidence as they read. And that's all directly connected to then spelling, as you see here with that long O lesson. And you'll see hallmark of Shane's work, word sorting, word building, that multi-sensory approach to instruction. And when we are many times engaging students with spelling, what else are we doing? Handwriting. It's completely integrated, 100% coverage of our TEKS directly tied to not only phonics, but that's then tied to spelling, which is then tied to handwriting. And we utilize research-based routines, as you see with Write and Reveal. And yes, there's an AG part for that. And then, of course, if you want to incorporate this in small group, you can easily do that because we have what we call Make Minutes Count. Now, all of the foundational skills instruction can come to life through various resources. Picture cards, word cards, letter cards, sound spelling cards, but also what we call Alpha Friends. And Alpha Friends, as you see here, this is Tyra the Tiger. She is in a card format, but she also comes to life through song and video. I know we're up on our time. I want to give you just a moment to listen to her before I quickly wrap up with
got a brand
writing.
new dance with the letter T. Everybody get on your toes. 1,
Cute,
2,
right?
3.
You all can get up and do it if you want. No? Okay, all right, we'll move on. Foundational skills, very important to consider. Connected, grounded in research. So our phonics instruction is connected to our spelling instruction, which is then connected to our writing. And then, of course, you have a wide variety of resources to bring that instruction to life. Writing workshop is important to you all as well. And so what you'll find is that our writing workshop is research-based. Many of you are familiar with Joyce Armstrong Carroll or Abydos. And as you see, she is an author of our writing workshop and what's really the New Jersey Writing Project. So what you'll see is through her work, it is modular in design. It is in reflection of what students are reading because we provide you access to the authentic mentor text or trade book titles to engage your students within the writing process. And as they go through any one of the modules, as you see here where they're focusing in on an argumentative piece, you'll see we move through the process of writing from pre-writing to drafting to revising. And you'll have multiple touch points, which is so important. Think about your students. Do any of you have students in the room that write 3 words and they're like, whew, that was a workout. That was hard. Right? So multiple touch points really to build proficiency and stamina as they move through the writing process. And of course, it really all begins by introducing that mentor text or focal text, where they're focusing in on author's word choice, purpose, and craft. As they move through the process and get to editing and revising, this is where you have integrated grammar instruction. Now, what we know is many times our students need a touch more. And at the back of your writing workshop guide, what you'll find is an orange tab, and here you'll find a collection of additional mini lessons specifically geared towards grammar instruction. This can either be used whole group, small group, or independently if you choose to do so. So you have choice. And then just a few more steps, and then your students would share. Quickly note that regardless if you use the anchor charts in the reading workshop, you also have them for the writing workshop as well as the writing process. And yes, you even have what we call display and engage that can be used in the moment of teaching and learning, no matter the workshop that you're involved in, be it the reading workshop or the writing workshop. Our writing workshop, again, is grounded in research through the work of Joyce Armstrong Carroll. And of course, it's modular in design, which means it's flexible. But more importantly, it's interconnected and recursive. It is directly connected back to what our students are reading. I'm going to quickly wrap up my time by talking a minute about assessment, because I know this was important. I shared a few assessment points with you, for example, the guided reading benchmark assessment, but just know through HMH you will be provided an adaptive growth measure. This is a part of the program, not something you have to go buy. So many times as districts we have to purchase screeners, and this is a part of the program. In addition to that, you'll have access to a wide variety of module assessments as well as lesson assessments, focused in on the selections, the skills, the strategies, but the big takeaway here is that they're all customizable. Just like you can customize your own lesson plan, you can completely customize your assessments to match. And when the data is either imported in or collected on ED, you'll have access to all those actionable data points as you see here. And as a teacher, I can easily drill down. You can see the color coding. I probably don't even have to explain that to you, right? The yellow, the green, the red, to show proficiency. And I can even take it to the next step and say, click, take that data, and create my groups. So all of the data that's been collected through the various assessment types that come with Into Reading, as well as Arriba la Lectura, you can create those groups, but you can even go to the next step. Say I need to focus in on Christine here. I have a parent conference coming up, or it's time for report cards, and I can take a closer look at her overall proficiency. I can drill down, I can see her growth over a period of time, but more importantly, I have access to a projected STAR score, according to all of the data that's been collected within ED. So I'm going to wrap up my time with you all this morning with where I started. What makes HMH different? First and foremost, it is manageable and flexible. It revolves around a balanced literacy approach to instruction for the reading workshop as well as the writing workshop. Built for us in Texas. It is not repurposed or relabeled. You have unique titles, not 4 of the same title. You have a complete Rigby Reader library to build out your classroom experience. And then of course, completely in print as well as online and Parallel Plus for Spanish. And with that, I'd like to wrap up my time with you all this morning. I want to say thank you so very, very much, and we all look forward to partnering with you. Appreciate y'all coming out on a Saturday morning. And I'm going to turn it over to Carla.
Okay, 2 things you guys have to do. You gotta get your stamp.
Yes, Courtney.
And I'm going to pass these, can I give these to you and just hand out? Thank you. These folders. Quick thing in these folders. There are some information in here on everything that Jennifer talked about, but you want to pull out this guy that looks like this, because this is how you get online, and tomorrow you can use those Rigby readers in your classroom, or you can pull up those anchor charts. So in the inside of this, just so you know, on the flip side of the opening page is how you log in, set up your username and password, so you can try out every one of the resources. In your bags, you have a copy of my book and my pal and a teacher edition also to help you where you're doing that. Last but not least, I am part of the adoption, which means that I come and help you implement. So training is part of the adoption, as well as, working with campuses on using the technology and everything else that comes with the program. Quick other thing, I do have to tell you this. When you guys are looking at books today, 3 things I want you to remember. First, my book. I bought my book at Barnes & Noble and paid $300. Every kid gets a my book that they take home, so they have a library home. Second thing, Rigby readers. No more on, above, below level, that's specifically designed to match kids to the particular level. And so when I move up, I don't see the same book again and again each time. And you guys are familiar with the Rigby readers. And last but not least, for those of you who are writing teachers, this is why writing has the importance of a whole TE, not just 3 pages in a book. So if you're a 4th grade teacher, we're sitting there going like, I hope those 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade teachers are doing a great job. don't need to name anybody. You really need to go back and look at this writing teacher guide and the support it gives the teacher in the writing process. We want to thank you for coming on a Saturday. Hang out with us, and if you guys have some questions, let us know.